Hydrogen is going to take 25% of oil demand by 2050. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of Heise Says US. Grab your stein of coffee or your cup of joe and let's have a look at this CNBC article which is discussing, well, hydrogen is going to take 25% of all oil demand by 2050 according to Bank of America analysts. Now, I wanted to get a hydrogen car back in the day. When before I became a family man, I bought a little Smart for two, and I wanted to get the dual petrol hydrogen option. They never released it, but I still had a very low fuel use car. So let's have a look at this one, everyone. So hydrogen is set to play a major role in the global energy markets over the coming decades, supplanting a large chunk of oil demand, according to Bank of America's head of global thematic research. Speaking to CNBC's Squawk Box Europe on Friday morning, Haim Israel accepted that while oil and gas would still be needed going forward, it was nearing a peak in demand. We think it's peaking this decade. It's soon, way sooner than what everyone thinks. Israel listed several factors which would affect oil and gas going forward, including cheaper renewable energy, regulation, and electrification of cars. Well, you've got to realize one of the ways to produce hydrogen is using natural gas. So there are a whole lot of different ways to produce it. And one concern is, there are two concerns. One is the embodied energy when you get a resource. Okay, every resource has an embodied energy. And I'm going to bring this chart up here because this shows you different. As an architect, this is how we learn about it. This shows you different construction materials, then the embodied energy in the production, and then the energy to transport it. So how many megajoules? So for cement, for every kilogram of cement in the production of it, you've got 5.84. That's how much energy is used to produce it. And then to transport it, 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers, you've got more embodied energy as well, and it adds up. You've got, bricks, steel, sand to transport it. Really, there should be also for mining, so I'm not sure how detailed this table is. But you have to understand everything that is made has an embodied energy and an embodied carbon footprint. So the hydrogen, sure, it burns pure and clean, and you can have electric fuel cells which are very energy dense. But if the methodology used to produce it needs more energy than you get out, and then what technology is used to produce it or to produce that energy, that all needs to be taken into account. And I'm sure there are opportunities there to deal with it. But these are just things that you need to keep in mind, everyone. So we believe that hydrogen is going to take 25% of all oil demand by 2050, he went on to state, adding that oil was facing headwinds left and right. Yes, we'll still need it. Yes, it's still going to be around, but the market share of oil is going to plummet. But oil is a lot easier to transport than hydrogen. It is. It's a lot less dangerous to transport than hydrogen. But then again, oil spill has a much greater impact to the environment than, say, a hydrogen spill, unless it explodes. As noted by the US Department of Energy, hydrogen is an energy carrier, not an energy source, meaning it's a secondary energy source like electricity. The DOE adds that hydrogen can deliver or store a tremendous amount of energy and can be used in fuel cells to generate electricity or power and heat. In recent years, governments and companies around the world have announced goals to reduce their environmental footprint and move away from fossil fuels. Both the UK and European Union, for example, target net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. If these kinds of goals are to be met, the world's energy mix will need to see a significant shift to renewables and low-carbon sources, a mammoth undertaking. For his part, Bank of America's Israel emphasized the importance of diversification for companies involved in fossil fuels. We strongly believe that the big oils need to think in different ways, he said. They need to think about not big oil anymore, but big energy. From here onwards, to go much more into renewable sources to diversify their sources. In a sign of how things may be starting to change, a number of energy majors, who it should be noted remain big players in oil and gas, are now ramping up investments in renewables such as solar and wind. Well, you've heard about all of the biomass energy production for the environmental benefits, but then they're chopping down old growth forests, shipping it around the world. The problem is, people will just buy the marketing spiel. They won't think about the life cycle, cradle to cradle life cycle of some of these resources. I make the mistake of assuming these type of things are common knowledge, like embodied energy or opportunity cost, but I'm starting to realize more and more that it actually isn't. So you've got masses of people making emotionally based political decisions, think they're doing something good for the world or the environment, when they're probably having a net negative impact, and they don't realize it. So is that either a failure of our education system or just cognitive bias limiting people to teach or learn? Last September, it was announced that BP had agreed to take 50% stake in the Empire Wind and Beacon Wind projects from Norway's Equinor. The $1.1 billion deal is due to close in the early part of 2021. When fully up and running, Equinor says the Empire Wind and Beacon Wind projects, said to be located in waters off the east coast of the United States, will be able to power over 1 million homes. For how long? And then what happens with the problem with the wind turbines is they're terrible to get rid of. You got to blow the bloody things up. The blades are just a mess of plywood and other materials and all horrific glues, and they just bury the stuff and it just leaches into the water table. So that's the cradle to cradle thinking you have to have when you look at these things. But politicians don't think about that. They don't think cradle to cradle. They just think election terms. So hope for hydrogen. Hydrogen is another area to gain momentum. The EU has laid out plans to install 40 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolyzers and produce as much as 10 million metric tons of renewable hydrogen by the year 2030. Okay, now we have to look at, I'm trying to find out what the embodied energy here is. And this is a paper, The Net Energy and Carbon Footprint Analysis of Solar Hydrogen Production from the High Temperature Electrolysis Process. And in here it says the differences. So the CED of the photovoltaic and CSP-based high-temperature solar electrolysis process are about 15.1 to 28 megajoules per kilogram of hydrogen and 18.8 to 30.1 megajoules per kilogram respectively. This implies a net energy gain of 90 to 104 megajoules per kilogram of hydrogen. So with this process, they're getting a net gain. That doesn't mean there isn't an embodied carbon. Let's say 15 is just the embodied energy in that process. So that means that's worse than cement per kilogram in the production. It's 3 times as bad as cement, nearly up the level of aggregate. It's at lime. It's nowhere near as bad as steel, so hydrogen's doing much better than steel. So there we go, per kilogram. So probably about half of steel using this method of 28. So you just have to realize there's nothing without a cost, okay? Hydrogen isn't going to be some magical thing. I mean, it's smart to look at, but one thing I can't find is the transportation of hydrogen, because I'm reading about all these different things where they pipe it, or they put it in cryo trucks, and then there's the risk of transporting it too. So that's the good thing with aviation fuel and with petrol. You can transport it really easy, and it's generally pretty safe. Hydrogen can be produced in a number of ways. One includes using electrolysis with an electric current splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen. I mean, everyone did that at high school. You can do that with a battery at home if you want. If the electricity used in the process comes from a renewable source, such as wind, then it's deemed green or renewable hydrogen. See, that's... Okay, cool. You've got to understand there's an embodied energy to produce, install, and manufacture that wind stuff. So... anyway, at the moment, the vast majority of hydrogen generation is based on fossil fuels. Now, here we go. The thing with fossil fuels, where they're generating it from natural gas, there's kind of like a 65% increase in the embodied energy of the hydrogen from just using the gas itself. So it's not a net benefit. It's actually a net negative with regards to the embodied energy of it. So we're getting there. It still needs to get to the point where it can, where it can be a net negative. It's kind of like the fusion reactors in some regards, depending on the tech, where you're still pumping more energy in than you can get out. So I mean, I guess this will be in other people's backyards. All the poor people that live near the plants that are producing the energy for the fossil fuel hydrogen generation are going to get all the pollution, where the rich people driving in their hydrogen fuel cars, they won't. They'll feel good. It'll just be water. You know. Nevertheless, recent years have seen major firms including Repsol, Siemens Energy, and BP get involved in projects connected to green hydrogen production. At the start of the week, it was announced that a subsidiary of German industry giant ThyssenKrupp had been awarded an engineering contract to carry out the installation of an 88 megawatt water electrolysis plant for Hydro-Quebec. The electricity for this project will come from hydropower. Now that's probably more sensible than wind. Using some of, building some dams so you've got water storage, you've got readily access to it, then using that to generate hydrogen. Why not? That makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's what we should be looking at here in Australia. They wanted to look at the Bradford scheme to bring water to the central part of our continent. We have a look here. This is Australian production of hydrogen, or potential in development. We've got a few. Are there any operating? A few in the cities. Here in Brisbane we've got 2. And the suitability of it. Maybe that could be a way to do it. Here if we look at the US, here's the liquid producers, the gaseous distribution terminal on-site, merchant producers and captive producers, all the different industrial hydrogen facilities. That could be exciting. So, a few days later on Wednesday, Danish energy firm Ørsted said it was pushing ahead with plans to develop a demonstration project which will harness offshore wind energy to produce green hydrogen. Is anyone looking at using nuclear energy to produce green hydrogen? That'd be great. How could, you've got to cool it anyway, why not? The international, I'd rather see that, maybe a small nuclear generation, because the waste is not that big. The waste storage for nuclear, they keep it above ground, they store it, it's fine, you can keep it there. You're going to have less area of waste storage required for energy production from nuclear than you are from wind turbines. Just keep that in mind. So the International Energy Agency says global dedicated hydrogen production amounts to roughly 70 million metric tons per year, and states that demand continues to grow, having increased more than threefold since 1975. According to the Paris-based organization, less than 0.1% of global dedicated hydrogen production today comes from water electrolysis. Yes, because where's the rest of it coming from? I bet you a lot of it's from natural gas. So there's opportunities there, but you need to keep, this one here, particularly the high temperature one. And when's this paper from? When was this published? Okay, so it's March 2021, so 2020, just last year. And then we've got the production cost, hydrogen production cost using natural gas in different regions in 2018. And you can see here the US, then with, the Middle East has probably got the most competitive pricing in the world. So everyone, there we have it. Hydrogen to take oil demand, or take 25% of oil demand by 2050, according to the Bank of America. What do you think? Do you see it happening? Are you investing to take advantage of it? And would you want to have a hydrogen-run vehicle? What do you think? As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I cobble together here, there are a few ways you can support the channel. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Aussie Broadband. You can buy merch from Heise Says, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.